When I was younger, I would clean 50 to 90 stalls on the weekends. And like that took up my entire weekend. But I made it work. And honestly, that's sometimes how your business is. We hate when that happens. But
Yeah. So when you said that there's a lot of parallels, you were being literal, right? Like there's a bunch of crap you got to shovel. Welcome to Built to Scale, where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs just like you about what it takes to build a thriving business without sacrificing your personal life. My name is Craig Severinsen, and I help people make more money working with better clients while also working less. And now I'm sharing it all with you. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Craig Severinsen here, and this is episode number 5. I'm really excited about this content because today we talked with a really good friend of mine, Selah Shepherd. Selah runs SM Strategies, which is a Facebook ads agency. They work with high-level e-com brands. And what I love about Selah, and what I think you're going to find really interesting, is that she has built this cohesive life out of two very different elements that most people don't think would go together. So she is a competitive horse rider, and she runs a successful, thriving Facebook ads agency. Those two things don't normally go together, but we got a lot of value out of this conversation. There's 3 things I want you to look out for. So number 1 is that Selah is operating her business at a really high level. She's become a trusted advisor to her clients, and she talks about how she's leveraged that to be more profitable, but also to just scale her business and grow her business so that she can compete with her horses and run a successful business. Number 2, I want you to look out for how she safeguards her time. We talk about using your calendar. We talk about putting boundaries so that you don't lose your life to your business and vice versa, right? You don't lose your business to your hobbies. How do you get that balance? We talk a lot about that. And then number 3, there's just a lot of talk about horses and the parallels between horses and business. And I think you're going to find it humorous. I think you're going to find it fun. I think you're going to find it really, really valuable. So without further ado, let's dive in. You're so multifaceted, right? Like you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life because you've got, man, I don't even know if I can name them all. You've got travel, you've got the horses that you compete with, right? And then you've got your business. And I think for anyone, that's a ton of stuff, right? That is a ton of stuff. And so we were curious, like, which one of those things, like, I always assumed that the business was like your main focus because that's my main focus, right? Is business. But like to you, in your mind, is there a main focus of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, the horses have motivated me to do everything that I've done. And I've learned a lot of valuable lessons from horses and a lot of stuff that actually does apply to horses or to business from the horses. They both have so many similarities and things I've grown up. I always, if I wanted to ride horses, my parents were like, you have to prove that you want to ride horses and you got to make it work. So I got a job at age 11, actually, out at the horse barn, which I think back on that, and that's so young. And it was just like a constant fight. And, if things came my way, like board bills or whatever, it was just always, I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And it's the same way in your business. So it's really taught me a lot and really made me into the business owner that I am today.
That's really cool to see that started so young. And so are you happy that your parents were like, yeah, you can do it, but it's all on you? Or do you wish that they had been more, put more money on the table or something? Was this a good thing for you from a young age, you feel like?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely good for me. I mean, I remember, I literally don't know how I did it. When I was younger, I would clean 50 to 90 stalls on the weekends. And that took up my entire weekend. But I made it work. And honestly, that's sometimes how your business is. We hate when that happens, but sometimes you're, doing whatever you need to do, cleaning 50 to 80 stalls on the weekend. It's not what you want to do. It's literally the shit work. But you're getting it done. So
nice. Yeah. So when you said that there's a lot of parallels, you were being literal, right? Like there's a bunch of crap you got to shovel.
Yeah, exactly. And on the weekends when you don't want to do it the most.
When did you start? So you started riding horses around 11. Did you start competing around that same time too?
Yeah, locally. I didn't really start competing on a big scale until I was about 15, 16.
Is there like a bigger goal with the horses besides just like it's fun and you love it? Is there like I want to be whatever champion of the world?
Um, Not too big. I mean, I have goals to jump larger and be in some of the bigger classes. Eventually. However, I honestly, like, the more I got into it, the more I just like fell in love with the bond I created with my horse and the overall experience of just like going out and doing something that most people think is literally impossible. So I just fell in love with that bond you get and like the experience you have with this animal who you can't really communicate with, but you feel like is going through something similar as you.
That's really cool because I think you're right. Like most people do think that's impossible. Like, oh yeah, I wish I had a horse or I wish I could ride horses, but it seems so like that's just a dream that'll never happen. So it's really inspiring to think at 11 you were like, I'm gonna shovel crap over the weekends instead of hang out with my friends to make this happen. And the work ethic that has instilled in you is evident in the life you've been able to build. So like if we bring because I know what all the stuff that you've done, but the people listening don't. So like let's expand this out a little bit, because you also really like to travel, right? So like where are the places that I don't know that you've traveled like to I don't know where you've traveled, but I know you've lived several different places since we've been talking and knowing each other. So like where have you traveled? How do you fit horses and travel in together? Because those two things also seem incompatible, right? I've got horses, yet I'm living in 5 different places this year.
Yeah, it is kind of a crazy concept, especially to those who don't have high level competition athlete horses. But, I've traveled all over. I've been to New York to ride horses. I spent some time in Florida, showing on the circuit down in Wellington. I've been to Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I've been to Vancouver, Canada. I've been all up and down the West Coast. I've been to London to view the Paris Masters that went on over there. I didn't take my horses to that one, but yeah, I've traveled all over, and I'm born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, and then just within the last year decided to kind of take the leap and join the circus, some would call it, and do kind of the East Coast, West Coast mix, which has just been a really life-changing experience. And it's great because my business is completely mobile. So I just take it with me and I go with the horses and pack them up and do the whole thing.
I just imagine you like, some people have like, their dogs and purses as they go on to planes. I just, you're in line with like your horse behind you, you're getting on the plane. That's what I imagine.
Exactly. I wish. That'd be awesome.
Okay. So really cool. So that's interesting. So how long have you been running your business now?
It's been 5 years now.
5? So when you were starting to think about what sort of business do I want to grow, I'm assuming the horses and the travel had a lot of influence on your choices. Like, how did you land on? And tell us what you do too, because I know, but not everyone knows. So tell us like what is it you do, and how did you land on that, and how did your lifestyle influence that decision?
Yeah. So right now I run high level e-commerce ads. So I help businesses in the e-commerce space increase their sales using Facebook and Instagram ads. When I started more in the organic space, which I think a lot of people start in, especially when I was in university. I started the first ever collegiate social media club. And honestly, when I first got into social media, that was back in 2013, 2014. So social media did not look at all how it looked today. It was a lot of Twitter and minimal Facebook, that sort of thing. And I just knew that it was fun. I really liked to write. Writing was my thing then. And I knew I could write quick short form copy on social media. So I got really into it. And then I was like, you know what, I could do this from anywhere. So that might actually fit in quite perfectly. I was actually super stressed out because a lot of people around me were like, you're going to have to quit the horses when you get a real job, like no one, you won't be able to work a 9 to 5. So the idea of social media really excited me. So that's how I got into it. And then I just got fully into ads. And so when I decided to start working for myself, I knew that I could make it into whatever I wanted to make it into. And if clients didn't like the horse thing, or they weren't that compatible with the fact that I ride horses on the side, and sometimes, I got to go do something involving horses, then they weren't going to be a good client fit for me. So it all molded together and came into this beautiful harmony kind of work and play and all of that. And it makes a great balanced life in some ways.
I think that's the coolest thing. ever that you're sitting here and you're like, I've got this passion, and the, quote unquote responsible adults in your life are like, oh my goodness, like this is cool. Enjoy it while it lasts, because when you get a real job, it's all over.
Mhm.
And you have, built a business and life by design, which I think is like and what else I love about this is that lots of times I've seen, and I've done this myself, where it's like you start your business for those ideals of like, I'm going to have this balanced life. And then you get so consumed by the business that you forgot that you had all that other balance. And you've done a great job of being able to say, no, like it's not, there's no compromise here. It's both, right? Like I
Mhm.
get to do the stuff I love and I get to have this thriving running business. How do you keep that balance? Is that something that you have to actively like force, or is it something that's just natural for you?
Um, Definitely in the beginning, I got really caught up in the headspace of like, if I wasn't working, say at 9 a.m., while all my friends were off working, it felt like I wasn't doing my job. But I had to continually remind myself that sometimes I was working super late at night. If I have a product launch or something, I might be working through the night almost while they're sleeping. So I had to remind myself that setting yourself those particular hours doesn't work when you have your own business. Today, I'm much better about the balance. I have a little bit of a set schedule in terms of like when I like to ride and when I like to work. Sometimes it gets a little bit harder, especially if like a client needs to have a meeting at a certain time. And, I work with clients all over the world. In fact, I have some in Australia. So finding a perfect meeting time can be a little bit difficult with those time zones. But actually, it does come very fluid to me. And I've figured out, if I'm competing, usually it's on, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if I can keep my meetings towards the beginning of the week all the way around, it's not a huge change for clients when I can't meet on those days. So it's definitely gotten easier, but it was very hard at first.
That's so funny, because for me that's the same thing I do to like guard my schedules. I just, on my calendar, there's certain days that, or certain blocks, no one's going to
Exactly.
miss me, because I don't schedule meetings period during that time. So I love that.
Yeah. I
So
think
that
that Friday afternoons are hard anyways. No one really
no one
has
wants
their
to.
full head in it.
Yeah, everyone's in the office just like playing solitaire, but I just take it off. See, that's the
Yeah.
trade-off, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a really funny thing, because for me, a driving part of my like wanting to do my own thing was the BS of being in an office and pretending to be busy that all office workers do.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like there's downtime, and it's like, instead of being in an office pretending to be busy, I'm just going to shut that mindset BS down, and I'm just going to go be with my family, or I'm going to go do a hobby, or I'm going to go do something that actually is constructive, instead of pretending like what I'm doing is going to somehow, move the business forward. So I think that that's actually a legitimate point.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, I think about 6 to 8 hours on my own and how much more I get done because it's very focused. There's no water cooler breaks or lunch breaks or all
So
the walking.
sometimes there's no lunch breaks either, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually a lot of work. It's way more than I ever got done when I worked in an agency.
But the trade-off is, yeah, so I do that too, where it's like you do these long stints. Sometimes I forget to have lunch, but then like I'm done by like 3 o'clock, and I can stop and not feel bad that I'm going to go spend time with my kids, or with my wife, or go for a walk or something. Like I don't have to feel bad about that. I can strike that balance, and like you said, can be a really balanced, awesome life.
Yeah, definitely. And I have noticed, sometimes I put my own pressure on myself. Like, say I get an email from a client that's kind of a fire type email, of a concern of some type. Like, in my head, I put pressure that I need to immediately respond. And I have to kind of take a step back and be like, do you think that client expects that I'm going to respond this quickly? Like, is this the type of thing that they expect to be done in the next hour? Or is it something that I can push off until the end of the day or even the next day just to give myself a little bit more time? So I always, whenever I see things like that, I always take a step back and I'm like, wait, is this pressure I'm putting on myself, or does the client actually expect that of me?
I love that. And I've even at times, I don't do it right now, but at times I've put rules on myself, like don't respond to an email for 24 hours, because you train the people you interact with on how to interact, like on how to treat you, right? Like you train them. And so if you're doing that constant response, that's what they're going to start expecting. And then your life turns into this constant email responder, right? Where you're just like constantly trying to respond to people. So I think that's awesome advice. That's great.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's the same with horses, Craig.
wait, say it again.
I said it's the same with horses. You're always training them.
Man, we could probably do like a whole like series on just like life lessons from horses, huh?
Exactly.
Have you ever thought about running ads for the horse world? Like, have you ever thought about like mixing your two worlds, your ad world and your horse world?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I actually have done that. I've ran campaigns for lots of people in the horse world. I still actually have one client who's kind of a passion project. And just because I love the product, I love the business. I've been a client of theirs for years. So I have kind of mixed it a little bit. But you know, horse people are very interesting people, and I can say that because I am one. So you have to kind of watch who you take on.
So you want to be in the horse world, but not necessarily depend on them for your livelihood. I get you. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you said something a little bit ago that I want to go back to, and in total transparency for everyone, Selah is a previous client of mine. We've worked together on and off several times. We're not currently working together, but I've seen her journey over. Did we start working together like 3 years ago? Something like that? Like,
yeah, something like that.
it was early on in your entrepreneurial journey, and I've seen you go from like uncertain and struggling to just being like thriving and with a client waiting list, making tons of money. Like, I've seen this huge shift in you. And the thing I want to go back to and point out is that you said you work with what did you say, upper level e-com or something like that, the wording you used. And what I love about how you have grown your business is I think most ads people try to grow their business by like, how many more accounts can I get? I want 1 million accounts. I want more and more accounts. And instead, you've grown to a level and said, okay, I'm going to raise my rates, fire the clients that don't want to pay it, and work only with the elite. And then you grew again. They said, okay, I'm going to raise my rates. I'm going to fire and go back in. It's like this constant like refocusing of your target market. So I just explained the whole thing, but I guess the question is thoughts on that, Selah? No.
Yeah, you did it for me.
Yeah, the question is like, how has that worked for you? Would you do it differently, I guess, if you did it again? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts around how you've grown your business.
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy to take on a bunch of low-level clients, like that's $500, $750 to $1,000, $1,500 range. I jumped into that pretty quickly in my business. And so I kind of thought to myself at one point, I was like, you know what do I really have to lose? Like, if I go a few months of trying to get those upper level elite clients and I can't, the worst that's going to happen is I'm like, okay, I really need some money. Can I go take on some $500 to $750 clients?
Yeah.
And that didn't end up happening because I wasn't coming at it from a area of like being super scarce and afraid of not having money. I came at it from an area of like, I think I can help those businesses. I've done it before and I'm really not afraid to try. So why not? And that helped me and really propelled me forward into getting those bigger upper level clients.
Yeah, really cool. Do you think, looking back at it, would you have done it differently at all in any way?
I don't think so. I mean, I did the grind game, actually did a lot of that last year during COVID. I took on like 18 to 21 clients because we were all staying home and e-commerce was huge. And I made a lot of money, but honestly, it wasn't like sustainable at all. And I knew that when I was in it. I was like, there were weeks I literally worked 100 hours and I was like, this is not sustainable. I don't know if I even have the time to work out, but we're not doing anything around here in this world. So why not just do it? And I wouldn't go back to that. And now I know that that's just not something I want to do. I'd rather have a few elite clients than a bunch of clients at any scale, honestly.
Well, yeah, I love that because I think, the analogy I use all the time is like, it doesn't matter how hard you flip the light switch if the bulb is burnt out, right? Like, it doesn't matter how hard you hustle flipping that switch, the light's not coming on. So you got to replace the light bulb. And I think that carries over to what you're saying here is it's like, you could hustle all you wanted, but really your business will grow sustainably and predictably, maybe a little bit slower, and you get that work-life balance, which is obviously super important to you. So I think that's the trade-off. I guess when it comes down to it, that's the trade-off. And I think that we kind of fall into two camps as entrepreneurs. It's like, do you want to grow slow, steady, like what we're talking about? Or do you want to just like hustle and grind your way to success. But and I feel like most people like are captured by that hustle. I don't find it alluring at all, but some people do. Like they love that kind of hustle lifestyle. But what I've seen happen time and time again is that they just get burnt out. Like they don't make it. They don't ever make it to success because they get burnt out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Craig. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but before I started working with you, I interviewed a bunch of people to kind of help propel me forward because I was just in a bit of a rut. And I remember interviewing with one coach, and he told me, like, you're going to have to work long nights. You're going to have to give up some sleep. Like, this is how it goes. And I was like, I don't know if this is a fit. When I talked to you and you were not about that, you were like, no, your business shouldn't be like that. Let's make a plan where it works for your lifestyle. I was like, okay, yeah, that's more my style. It doesn't give me a panic attack.
You know what I remember about you coming up when we first started working together is that we were chatting on Facebook and you were like, I don't know. And I was like, it sounds like you're like on the edge of the cliff and you're just kind of like, should I jump? Should I not jump? You're like, yeah, exactly. And I sent you a GIF of the Lion King of Rafiki, the monkey or baboon or whatever he is, holding up Simba and then just throwing him off the cliff.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And I loved it because you were like, you're right, let's do it. And I was like, yes, I just made a sale off of Rafiki throwing Simba off of a rock, and it's awesome.
Thank you, Disney.
Yeah, thank you, Disney. Still paying my bills. Nice. So, selfishly, since you brought it up, I'd love to hear like what are the differences you saw like before working with me and during working with me and like after? Like how did the work we do together influence or affect your business?
I mean, absolutely. I was very much hourly before I was working with you. And you really pointed out to me in that first session, like, there's only so many hours in the day. And that's really how you become a slave to your business. So that was the biggest change that I made, was just going to retainer and there really solidifying what my business actually was. Because in my head, I was like, I could help anyone and I want to help anyone. And you were like, let's focus that down a little bit. Because there are a lot of anyones out there in the world. So that was the biggest change. And I did that in the first round when I was working with you one-on-one. And then I joined the group call, which was a completely different dynamic because you had people doing all sorts of things and you got to learn from, what everyone else was doing. And it tapped into my athletic competitive spirit a little bit, which I think was good for me too. And just gave me that motivation to keep going forward in my business.
Love it. Very, very cool. So now looking at where you're at, what's the next thing on the horizon for you that you're working on?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm doing a lot of advising and consulting now, which I didn't really know, like in the beginning. I think if you had told me I would be doing that, I'd be like, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been like, do I have enough knowledge for that? But now I really do think of myself as an expert in what I do. And I do think that I can help, at least work through problems a lot quicker than a lot of other people who do what I do. So I've gotten into a lot of the consulting, a lot of auditing, looking in accounts. And, it's funny, I looked in an account like last week, actually, and most of them were accounts of ads that I get all the time for myself. So it was kind of cool to be in an account for ads that get targeted towards you and completely audit it and tear it apart and then basically give it to someone else and they get to go do the work. But you got to do all the top level strategy, which is one of the things I really love.
And that's the thing that pays the most too. So I love to hear it. So first of all, I love that your confidence is built and that change is awesome because you totally are hands down one of the best ads people I know. So like it's cool to see. So it's well-earned confidence and glad to see that that's there. But the other thing too is the consulting. If you want somebody to set up an ad for you, that really is an hourly rate thing. You know what I mean? Go get a college kid that just learned how to set up ads. They can do it, right? Facebook has great free training. There's tons of people that know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to do it right and you want the strategy, that's where the money really comes in because that's where the ROI comes into play. So I love to see your transition there. And I think we're at this weird, and I think COVID sped this up. It's like is that a horse barking? I can't.
Yeah, that's the noise horses make if you didn't know.
Right? I thought so. You got a little horse in the background. I see him. Because everything Selah does is horses. But it's kind of like a pendulum of, and I think COVID sped this up, where it's like everyone was rushing to the consulting and coaching side from the actual service delivery. And now everyone's looking here saying like, okay, great. Like, I love all this strategy, but like, I also need it done. And so the pendulum is starting to swing the other way. And I think the trick is to stop your business on that level where you're really living in that strategy. That's your bread and butter. That's where the money, that's where the ROI is. But you're also having some sort of deliverable so that it's not just theory, it's actual tangible results. Like, that's the key. And it sounds like you're striking that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to spend $3,000 to $5,000 a month on Facebook, it's pretty easy to do at this point. A lot of people understand how to do it. I mean, the algorithm is so advanced. It's the best algorithm in the world, even though we're having some issues with iOS 14. You could have anyone do that. You can have your 16-year-old daughter probably figure out how to do it. But if you want to spend up above that, if you want to get to that $50,000 a month and above, clients I have that are spending $10,000 a day, if you want to do that and you want to do it effectively and figure out how to manage all the other things you're doing in your business at the same time, whether that's email or Google ads or other paid ads of any sort, SEO, that sort of thing. If you really want to figure out how they all come together, then you need somebody who actually has experience bringing all those things together. Because otherwise you're just putting money down the toilet, only doing one thing at a time. They're kind of like broken up. And you really want a holistic approach.
Yeah, totally. So if we were to get real, like really like think about like honest, what is like the toughest thing at this phase in your business right now? Like, what's the thing that's like, man, this is my like big rock right now. This is my big thorn in my side. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Definitely the iOS changes. Facebook used to be that I could find anybody I wanted to find. I could follow them all around the internet as many times as I wanted until they buy. Now it's harder and harder, especially as users opted out of having their data shared. It's harder and harder for the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't know anymore, Craig bought this and likes this, so I'm going to go find people like Craig. Craig is in a group of a bunch of similar people. So our audiences are a lot smaller. Our frequency, the amount of times that someone sees an ad is so much higher. That's been the biggest issue. And it's also a mental mind shift for a lot of clients that they didn't really see coming. Before, they could put a lot of their apples or almost all their apples into Facebook, see a positive return, and therefore get their money back. And it made sense to continue putting it in. Now they don't have a great attribution, meaning that you can't tell exactly how many purchases came from what campaign. So it's just a lot of inconsistencies across the board. So we're switching clients' perspectives a little and saying like, okay, well, maybe we need to use Facebook in a different way. Maybe we need to grow your email lists more top of funnel type traffic. And then see if we can get the bottom of funnel working. It's just a completely different mindset. And it's like, yeah, it might look really awful when you open up Facebook, but let's look at your overall growth and your overall sales. So that's been the biggest challenge. And clients, they lose a little bit of your trust and they might leave you, or they might go see what other ad buyers and other agencies have to say, and they might get told the exact same thing. So that's definitely what we're seeing in the industry is a huge shift. People who are using agencies are going to contractors, and people who are using contractors go to agencies, the whole 9 yards. So that's the biggest struggle right now.
That's interesting. It sounds like the way that you're handling it, though, which is super smart, is one balancing their strategies. Like, this is what we're talking about, right? If you're just running ads, this happens, and then you're hosed, right? Like, there's nothing to do. But because you're at that strategy level, you're able to say, well, okay, Facebook has made these shifts. We're having trouble, but are you on Google? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on these other places? And like, let's make sure that your strategy, even though parts of it are dipping, that you end up staying even. So I think that's really smart. And then the other thing is like that communication with clients. How hard when things are going sideways like this, how do you deal with client communication? Are you like the type of person that's like on top of it all the time, or is it more of like when there's a problem? Like, how do you handle clients when things are kind of iffy like they are right now?
I kind of call that firefighting. And I'm very open with my clients. I tell them, if there is something that's working on another client account, I'm like, look, this is what's working on my other client account. Like, here's a great example of what's working. Let's see if it'll work on your account. We don't know if it will. One of the things that's really hard for clients is they're like, oh, I feel like I'm always testing, or like we've been testing for the last couple of months. But that's kind of what marketing is. So it always kind of is testing. And that's what I like about it. So you just really have to work with them on being clear about what your strategy is and, like what your next steps are. But also I'm always very open. I'm like, this could work or it could completely not work, but we need to test it and see. We need to see if other platforms will work. We need to see if other creative will work, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love that transparency and that always focusing on this is where we're headed and this is what we're trying and these are the results we got. It's like retention to me becomes really easy when you do it that way. And then it's like good or bad, here are the results we got, good or bad, here's the plan moving forward. And the plan is always we're going to do more of what we did because it worked, or we're going to try this because it didn't work. And when you present it that way, clients are retained so much easier because they're in it with you. It's not just like, oh, do I like Selah or not? Or do I like whoever or not? It's, oh, I see the pathway. I see the plan. They're keeping me involved. Let's keep moving forward. Awesome. I love it, Selah. So tell us if someone wants to learn more about you, where do they find you? Where are you hanging out at these days?
I'm hanging out everywhere. If you want to see some amazing horse pictures, you can follow me on Instagram. That's at Selah Shepherd. If you want to connect with me about business or whatever it might be, I have a Facebook page and I'm always on Facebook Messenger. I actually do a lot of business through that. So feel free to reach out to me on Facebook at Selah Shepherd. And then, of course, email. I can send it over, or you can message me on Facebook or Instagram and I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Love it. Very cool. Thank you so much, Selah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If this episode helped you, share with someone who needs to hear it as well. For more information on how you can work with me and great resources for your business, head over to builttoscalehq.com. Join us next time for Built to Scale. And until then, take some fast, focused, imperfect action. I believe in you. I got your back. We'll talk soon.